And good evening, everyone. ESS, Empire State Sports, proudly presents the Wise Guys Sports Talk Show. Your host tonight, Joey Riom, Dave Barlett, myself, Pete Gosselin, our special guest, Mr. Tim Currier. Tim, welcome to the show.
Hey, everybody. Good to be with you.
Long-time Messina man right here, all the way through high school, played ball against him in high school. I don't know where to start, Tim. I mean, you've done a lot in Messina. I'm going to let you fill in on your bio, and then we're going to go from there. Okay, so it's your show.
Thanks, Pete. Great to be with you guys. I'm a lifelong Messina person, born and raised here. I've had the great fortune of being involved in so many things in Messina. It's really given me a great life, a rewarding life. I'm about to turn 55 in December. So, looking back at it, the opportunity to coach kids, the opportunity to work in law enforcement, the opportunity to lead this community as mayor, and all of those opportunities that have been afforded to me, it's just incredible. It's been a great life. 32 years of coaching basketball until 2017. It was time to move on. And so I'm doing other adventures. And I got to tell you, I've had a really great life in sports and basketball. Been a big part of it, and I really attribute much of the success that I've had in my life to sports.
So let's go back a little bit, Tim. You were an exceptional athlete in high school. I played against you. I actually we'll go back a little ways. First time I actually met you was on a bus that went from Messina to Potsdam State. When we went to basketball camp, it was the first time I ever met you, many moons ago, and we've known each other since then. Now we're going to get into a lot of topics, I'm sure, tonight. Your love in sport is basketball, almost like the rest of us here. So let's talk a little bit about the youth basketball. Let's go from there and move forward. So you've done a lot for that community, Tim, and you've had a lot of help along the way. I've been in tournaments out there too, well organized. But if you can give us a little insight on where you started with youth basketball up to the present.
Hey, you know what? As I recall, maybe about fourth grade is when we started travel basketball in Messina. Legendary names in Messina were responsible for starting youth basketball in Messina. Jerry Welch, John Murray, originally from Ogdensburg, Rick Offeld. Those were the kind of the trifecta guys that started youth basketball in Messina. It was really just different grade schools playing against each other. And then when I was about a fourth grader, they decided, let's start doing some traveling. So we'd go and play Norwood, Salmon River. And then it just kind of took off. And then a guy by the name of Frank West in Messina, who's since passed away, he was with General Motors and transferred out to the Midwest when the plant downsized here. He started what we call the Frank West movement, which was considerable travel basketball in the North Country, going to Ottawa, going to Montreal, going to Oswego, going to Plattsburgh, and really broadening the travel aspect for kids. And he literally put 5 or 6 kids in his van and take them around the North Country into Canada and play tournaments. Fell in love with the game, but fell in love, I think, more than anything, with just the team aspect of it. I grew up in a family that was at best lower middle class. We were right just slightly above the poverty line. So, but it was a great complaint. I'm happy with that. I'm really proud of it. And so it was sports. Sports was my life. It was going to school and then somehow sports, and youth sports was a big part of it. And, when I look back at, if I were to pick 10 people that are the most influential in my life, 6 of them are probably coaches that really impacted my life. Some of them are youth sports. Some of those are high school sports, but they impacted my life. So youth sports for me was the start of what I believe setting me on the right path to go forward. And I got to tell you, and if you looked at my transcripts, you wouldn't be very impressed with them. But So I think I was a better athlete than student, and I think athletics and youth sports and high school sports is what kept me in school and kept me on the straight and narrow and helped me get to where I am today.
So,
Well,
elaborating on that a little bit. Sorry, Joey. It's a tough time in our world right now, Tim, with COVID and a lot going on in the schools, as Joey will attest. That there's not going to be a lot of sports, and I feel that the kids need that sports. Like you and I, and we all played sports. We all stayed on the narrow. It was something to look forward to at the end of the day. Okay, what's your thought process on this, on the COVID thing, and how the schools are going to handle it, and how it's going to affect our youth going forward?
Man, you are so right on that. You know, youth sports is like a $17 billion financial impact in this country. It's bigger than Major League Baseball. It's about on the same level as the NFL, believe it or not. So from a financial standpoint, it's really important. But, you know, you and I, all of us really learned, I think, how to get along, how to compromise, how to find ways to work with people that we might have disagreed with on the sandlot, right? We had 7 guys show up to play baseball on a Wednesday afternoon in the summer. You had to figure out some rules and be unique, and you had to give and take so you could get people to figure out how to make that game happen. And sometimes somebody got mad and went home. They came back the next day and they realized, if I get mad and I don't work this out, I'm not going to participate. So we learned so much from that. And you're absolutely right. One of the things we're trying to do in Messina, I've been encouraging my EOC team, is find a way to say yes. We have to be safe. We have to be careful. But the social aspect and the psychological aspect of dealing with COVID, and I heard a term the other day, and man, it resonated with me. Many of us that are in leadership roles, or Joey at the school, and whatever your leadership role might be, you have decision fatigue now because of COVID, where we took for granted all these simple decisions. Well, now it's complicated because of COVID, and are we putting people at risk? And how do we best take care of our student athletes and our citizens and our friends? So all of that fatigue matters, and the only way to really solve that is some type of social or athletic interaction with people. So, I think we got to find a way. I think we have to be unique. And I know, everyone that I've talked to is trying to solve that. But, the overall scare with everyone is, if we do it, are we putting kids at risk? Are we putting other people at risk? And I think we're learning much more about this disease, particularly recently, right? How it's contracted, where the biggest risks are. And I think if we take that into account and we're careful, we can do that.
Tim, being the mayor, I mean, how much, I would assume there's some, but how much coordination between you and Pat Brady, do the two of them, the connection between the two of you? Because I think some of the issues that we're going to be seeing, youth sports youth sports and outside sports might become unbelievably prevalent again. But one of the main issues is going to be, can we use school facilities? Like right now, I can't even think about starting Brazier Falls youth basketball. I mean, basketball is not an approved sport, but I can't even think of using my school right now. It's Mr. Stewart's call, and I trust his decision. Some schools may be different than others. Any word on things like that over in the town of Messina?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, I have the greatest respect for Pat Brady. Pat and I have known each other for years. He's a former town supervisor in Potsdam, so he's got some political experience too. He sits on a couple of my committees, community-wide. I sit on a couple of his, so we work closely. An example of what you just talked about, we have youth soccer that's going on here in Messina. It's currently now run through our recreation program, and we're unable to use the school's fields. So we've had to juggle some other spaces and create some fields that weren't fields. It's a real challenge. And I think we've got to get past this fear and find safe ways to do it. And, when you look at the infection rate here in the state of New York, in the North Country, it's less than 1%. That's good. We have to be careful. I just talked with somebody at one of the SUNY schools this morning who said their infection rate is less than 1%. So again, recognizing we have to be careful and safe, we've got to find some ways to get some of this stuff moving because the long-term damage we're going to do to ourselves psychologically, emotionally, particularly kids. And, we all know there are kids that are at home situations that aren't good. They're not getting proper nutrition. There may be other dangers in the home that put them at risk. So unless we get them out of those houses routinely and back into school, school is the biggest daycare and childcare provider in this country. So finding some way to do that is going, and it can be gradual steps. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, but I think we have to do it. I think we're at that point. And that's not a criticism to anything or anybody or the decisions they've made at this point. It's been challenging, and we're in uncharted territory here. And the biggest thing is none of us want to make a mistake that's going to put people's health at risk.
Well, totally understand that. And I've been obviously involved with this now for 6 months, and I don't consider it a joke or a hoax or anything like that. But I also, read something the other day, and curious to all three of your thoughts on this. What's the end game for this? What's going to be the line that says, okay, is a vaccine good enough to get back to normal? Is every state at 1% or less, like New York State right now, is that good enough to get back to normal? I mean, that's just one of the things that pops into my head. What's the end game? I want to keep being safe. I'll wear the mask. I'll do whatever we got to do to keep people safe. But at some point, what's that line that says, hey, all right, we're back to close to normal?
Probably a combination. It's herd immunity. It's vaccine. It's being careful. And the other thing is we have to have some cohesive strategy. Some people call that a national strategy. This country is so big, I don't know if we could have a national strategy for anything anymore. But we've got to have a broad strategy where we're all on the same page, we're all working together, and disagreeing when we have to, but doing what's best for everyone. Dave, sorry, I think I cut you off there.
No, I was kind of going to say the same thing you were going to say. I don't think there's a normal anytime soon. I think normal is what it's. I mean, I don't even know how to explain it. It's we're going to try and get back to normal, but I don't think there is normal as we've known it. I don't think that's ever coming back for a long time. I mean, we'll get close, and we'll be doing more things, but I think there's always going to be a little bit of something sitting there, right on the surface.
Well, my opinion, for what it's worth, I guess. I hate hearing that thing, norm. I'm sure everybody doesn't like to hear it. I'm hoping the vaccine helps, but what if something down the road and it doesn't, this vaccine takes, but then all of a sudden we got something else comes up. I don't foresee us going back to any kind of normalcy this school year with any kind of sports. That's just my personal opinion. I feel that we're probably never going to get everything going until next fall. Unfortunately, I think at this point, I'm an optimistic pessimist. So I'm very optimistic that something bad's going to happen. I really am. And it's tough to be optimistic and look in the future when you don't know where the end of the tunnel is. That's just my thought, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess probably me saying normal was probably the wrong word, because Dave's right. I don't think anything will ever be normal. But again, it's just something that I saw today that was a good question, and it wasn't anybody that was on any side of this thing. It was just, what's the end game? What draws the line in the sand that says, okay. And again, not to get back to normal, but maybe hey, schools can open regularly. Kids can play sports regularly. Regular, same word as normal, though, I guess. So
I think the other thing and I think we've lost track of this, and I know we were really focused on that early on in the crisis here in New York. It's about medical capacity, right? Hospital capacity. And that was the danger, right? In the North Country, I think we had 12 ventilators when New York City was really spiking. So we were obviously, or 14 maybe. We were trying to hold on to those, obviously. But so, if we had a real crisis here with COVID, we don't have the ventilators or the hospital beds to treat the sick, and more people are going to die. And we don't really have a national healthcare system or public health system in this country like we thought we did. And the end game is we have to fix that. And that's going to take longer than next fall. But we've got to solve that problem so that we're able to solve a crisis like this going forward, or at least prevent it from spiking, so that we can kind of live normal. And I hope part of the end game too is, and we've learned, and I've been relatively happy with the state's response to this. I thought we closed a little too early. I thought we closed too quickly. And I think now we've learned, the governor calls it dialing it back or dialing it open. I think if we have this second wave, I think we know more about it now. So we don't have to just close everything. Maybe we close the bars and the restaurants, and maybe schools go to plan 2 or plan 3 that says we're going to do partial, instead of just closing everything and really having that impact on our economy and our kids and all that. We can kind of dial it back, get the numbers down a little bit, and then get back to what we hope is the real normal, right? The real normal.
Right.
The normal.
Yeah. You've seen a real impact in your community as far as businesses being shut down during this, this pandemic?
Yeah, well, what's impacting it too, of course, is the Canadian border being closed.
Yeah.
So we have a number of restaurants. Keep in mind now, the biggest employer in the country is the federal government. The next biggest industry in this country is restaurants and bars. And those 2 industries, restaurants and bars, were hard hit by COVID when closed. Some of them have not reopened yet, and if they have, they've opened differently, and they're less capacity. We rely a lot on Canadian traffic coming over here to our restaurants and our bars, and living on the border. I know a number of people that are married to Canadian spouses, or have long partnerships with Canadian partners, and they can't go back and forth without that 14-day quarantine. So again, we get back to that social and psychological impact on it. But yeah, financially, and we've had some small businesses that have closed and probably will never reopen. And that's devastating, to them, certainly devastating to the community, losing a service and all the revenues that come with that. So very challenging.
Tim, are you in, I'm going to assume that you are, but that's why I'll ask the question that way though. Are you in touch with especially the restaurant and bar owners? I mean, we got to be getting down to crunch time here where, outdoor seating, we're getting close to, we need to be inside due to weather. So is there some fear on that going to now all of a sudden, we're still 50% capacity is the rule, and are they fearful? Can they make it through a winter at 50% capacity?
Of occupancy during the peak of COVID here in the States. So we actually went to the businesses, reissued them, gave them help, said this is how many people you can have, so they didn't have to rely on it. Then the state eventually followed it up with their own forms and things that people could fill out. And we've been very clear with our code, and they've done an excellent job. Work with people. If they have a broom closet that's big enough to put 2 people in it, let them use it. Make sure it's safe and all of those things. But we're not breaking rules. We're just making sure that we're maximizing people's opportunities to get back on their feet. I had a business owner the beginning of June, right? So we're just about to start opening the phases there, or thinking about it. And he told me, look, if I don't open soon, it was a restaurant owner. He said, I make my money 3 months a year. I stay open the rest of the year to employ people. If we don't, he was able to, all no small business owners, none of them are getting rich in the North Country, right? They're hard-working people who provide a service, who employ people. Small business is the biggest employer in the country. And, we have to work with them with situations like this. And thankfully, the state's been good about that. They recognize we have to work with people. So that's the case.
All right, let's get out of
Well, obviously, sorry, Dave, go ahead.
I'm done.
Well,
Seems like
I was just going to say, if I'm going to get back to coaching basketball, the one thing I need is my bar to go to during the winter. So I got to have that. So
Where else can you complain about the refs, work on the next strategy, and commiserate with your pain and suffering?
Yeah.
Well, and it's always good to get that. It's always good to go into St. Lawrence Central Bar after you just beat Messina. I don't have to worry about spending any money.
Oh.
Not that it happens very often, Tim, but you know.
I was going to say, if you only went there when you beat Messina, then you're not giving that person very much business.
It's true. Once a year, though, for the last 3 years. So
That's great.
That.
It's a great round.
Hey, so a couple of things I wanted to bring up. Obviously, your mentor, Tom Miller, is going to be coming on. He's coming on in a couple of weeks. We hunt him down. We found him. He's gonna come talk SLU basketball,
nice.
Not Messina.
Nice. You'll have to get the picture of Tom when he had hair and show that when he comes on. Totally changed.
Well, hey, we're going to give you a chance to talk about him because I don't think a lot of people, you know, when we talk about our North Country coaches, you don't hear Tom's name get tossed around as much as some others. I think he maybe got taken for granted a little bit because, you know, at Messina, him and Tim LeMay are in such a tough spot because, you know, it's always between the two of them, and one of them's going to states every year. And then when you guys go to states in the A's, you know, more often than not, you're up against some powerhouse from Section 3 or Section 2. So, you know, talk a little bit about Tom, because I think a lot of people forget he did take a team to the state Final Four in Edwards Knox a long time ago. So, and he is
foremost. He's a great friend. I had 1 year experience or two. I think as JV coach when he came in, and we immediately hit it off. He's an incredible person, great coach, and as you said, highly successful. Had some really good success at Indian River before he came to Messina. Was very successful here in Messina. He had a great luxury coming in. We have a really good youth program, so when his leadership and what he was looking to do, and that's the first time we had really done that in Messina in a long time, where the varsity coach and the K-1 instructional league were actually on the same page and working toward a common goal. Tom's one of the best basketball minds that I know. You know, I know basketball, I think, but I have to work hard to know. You know, if I go in and scout a team, it takes me a half an hour to know what's going on. He can walk in 5 minutes, be in the gym, and he's already picked about 3 things on players, and he's got it quickly. So he's a great basketball mind, well connected. People know him, they respect him. And the way he treats his players and his program, he's always done it right. And, you know, we were just talking the other day about, you know, being a coach and being a mentor are probably the greatest things you can do other than being a dad and a good spouse. And he's done that. And, you know, and it's funny, when he retired, I said, you ain't retiring. There's no way you're retiring. And next year he was at SLU. So great human being, great friend. And he knows the game as good as any person that I know, for sure. Has really bad taste in sports teams other than in Messina, but, you know, so you can jab him when he comes back of that.
Wait, who's he rooting for?
Well, so you got to be careful because he changes teams on you, but, you know, he kind of changes. You know, one day he was a Cubs fan, and you know, and then he's a St. Louis Rams fan, and then he's a Mets fan, but he's actually a Mets fan down deep. But for a while, when he first moved to Messina, he had the luxury, we didn't know a lot about him, so he could be maybe, I'm rooting for this team. And then, you know, in my cop background, when I go to somebody else's house, I'm really looking around and stuff. I'm like, what's all this Met stuff? You're actually a Met fan, you liar. So, so don't let him escape those types of things. But we have a lot of fun. We sure do.
Well, I think that's a great find, or you know, great collaboration for Coach Downs at University to be able to have Tom, you know, join his staff, because I think that's a perfect role for him at this point in his life as an assistant coach and an advisor, kind of advisor to. And speaking of the other Coach Downs, we'll give you a chance to talk about the guy that replaced you in Brendan Downs at Messina, and you know, and where he's heading with the program and how he's doing.
You know, he served several years working with Tom Miller as his assistant, so he's Miller trained, so he has the same understanding of how the program should be run, and it's program first, players second, and everything else falls in line after that with those guys. And Brandon's doing the same thing, understands the game, works hard at it. His kids respect him. We're kind of in a lull in the basketball program here in Messina. Our teams aren't where they were a few years ago, and I think that's for a number of reasons. But he's working hard to get that back, and I'm confident that he will. But he does it right. We collaborate a lot. So that's the nice thing is that he's still reaching out to me and Tom, and we're still trying to collaborate. And you never get it out of your system, and it's always fun now to go watch the games. And except I try not to coach from the stands, but I think you do every once in a while.
Yeah, we all do. We all coach and ref from the stands, unfortunately. It's just in our blood. It's just the way we're ticking. So I don't know much we can do about it.
Talk a little bit about the you mentioned Frank West, but talk a little bit about the Frank West tournament. It's something I know I brought my kids over a couple of times of playing that. That's a big deal every year, and a lot of work. I think I refed in it this past year.
Did you?
So,
yeah, they're well into their 30. Gosh, I think we're going on 40 years now of that tournament, and we're really proud of it. For so long, it was kind of the showcase tournament in the North Country, and we were running it when tournaments weren't really frequent up here. A lot of people weren't doing it. Now everyone's running tournaments and doing a good job at it, but and consistently for years, back in the days when I first got in the program, which would have been the mid 80s, and then I took over as travel director, and then I was commissioner for 15 years. But we had the same teams. You couldn't get into a tournament. Teams from Ottawa, Montreal, Oswego, Plattsburgh, same teams every year were coming to the tournament. And then as more teams started to have tournaments, there was more availability. So then there were more open spots. But they've doubled up now in size. They're really running bigger tournaments, more teams. They went with the flow. I think in some ways, we watered down basketball for tournaments. We were trying to get quicker games, more action, less dead ball action, so we get more things going. I'm not a big fan of that, but that's the way it is. That's the way everybody's doing it. But it's increased teams, and I think it's increased the ability of kids to get some exposure, play different talents, and that's the best thing, right? When you play kids from wherever it is, whether they were from St. Lawrence Central or Potsdam or Ottawa, wherever, and you develop some relationships that sometimes could be lifelong.
oh, without a doubt, and I think Pete might say this because Pete was involved with youth basketball for so long over at Salmon. I think you guys were probably the front runner. You did it for over 40 years. It wasn't until later. I know Salmon did it for a few years. Brushton's done one now for a long time. But when it came to the North Country, the blue and orange, that's been around for 15 years now, which seems like a long time. But, that Frank West tournament, that was just a staple that you knew was going to happen every year. And you really, guys, you were the forefront to probably every North Country basketball team now diving into those sort of things where a lot of the communities now have travel teams, and a lot of them have their own tournament.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I think we were so successful, Joey, is that we had a lot of non-parents involved in the program for so long. So we had stability, the same people there. As parents come and go, understandably, it kind of ebbs and flows, and maybe sometimes you don't do things as well because you don't have the right group working together. Where we had the same leadership team, I think, for about 18 years almost, other than the concession director. Dave Gerace handled referees for, my goodness, 30 years or 32 years for the Frank West tournament. Imagine that. And all volunteer refs, I think they pay him now, but we did volunteer refs for like 30 years. And a lot of them were certified officials that would come and do 2 or 3 games for us. So Dave managed that for 3 decades. And so that's the kind of people we had in the program, which I think helped us stay at that high level of being those good teams and getting people to compete and asking people to come. And I take pride in the fact that I think we set the example for some people. And there's so many good tournaments around now, so many good programs. It's fun to watch and be a part of it.
So, Tim, we had Tommy Lucky on last week. His show will come out pretty soon. Now, I know a few years back, do you guys still have a Boys and Girls Club in Messina? And if you do, how are things with it? And You know, because
Oh, yeah.
we talked to Tom about Ogdensburg's and how important those are to communities.
Oh, you know, those after school hours are so critical, particularly today, where the vast majority of families that have two parents, they're both working, or there's a lot of single parents out there. So having places for kids to go after school, we saw a drug issue that we really saw in the 2007 to 2009. All these things happening in our community, and New York, so there's a ton of work, and what a great team we have. Activities. So we were kind of in limbo. We came in when they made the decision to change, and they said you're going to have to affiliate with a club. So we either had to affiliate with Ogdensburg or Aquasasni. Those negotiations didn't pan out, so we moved on to the Police Activities League now. Our membership is, pre-COVID, we're getting 80 to 90 kids a day there. So it's a great program, and we have an incredible director. And I'll tell you, Tommy Lucky was a huge mentor, still is. If I have a question or we have a problem, we pick the phone up. And the nice thing about
We go mute.
disappointed we didn't stay with Boys and Girls Club, but that was a difficult road because the key is we're providing after school programming for kids, and that is really important. And we think 10 or 15 years we'll see the difference in our community for sure because of it.
What's the facility, Timmy, that you use?
Yeah, so it's the former St. Joseph's Social Hall. If you know where the project is on State Route 37, that's so we were able to negotiate a decent price. Alcoa weighed in and helped us with that. That property was originally owned by Alcoa. They were able to step in and help us negotiate with the church, and we put about $300,000 of renovation of that. We purchased it for about $150,000. So we have a significant investment in that building, and it's beautiful. I'd encourage anybody to stop in and take a look at it. We have all the technology there and all the things that are necessary to work closely with kids, paid professional staff, they're trained, national programming, all that good stuff that happens. And one of the things that we've seen is the connection to the school district, right? So if someone has a student who's not doing their homework or having particular issues, the teacher can email the director at Police Activities League, and he'll pull that kid aside. They'll give them some extra help with tutoring or homework. So it's really been a strong connection. And I think our connection's the strongest because we were in the schools for 2 years before we opened that facility. So the superintendents and the principals worked closely with us and really mentored us in a lot of ways. And you can't find anybody better on how to educate and treat kids than the school system. So it was a great partnership for us.
I think that's a great to have that connection. So in the communication, some kid may fall by the wayside otherwise, but with the communication, like you were just saying, I think that's great.
Yeah.
They allow for tutoring, Tim, at that facility, or?
They do, yeah. And so we have two clubhouses in Messina. We have the PAL, and then we have a Horizons Clubhouse, which is a state-funded kids at risk for 12 through 17-year-olds, and that's more social, but there is some programming. But with PAL, there's programming, so they have a time that's allocated, and they rotate in groups. So they got homework time. They may have art. They have technology. There's some recreation. So it's really a balanced approach every single night, consistently getting that homework help, STEM learning, science, technology, and math. So it's really important, and I think it's a great partnership with the school district, and we think it'll pay dividends.
So you said that you guys are running a soccer program now for the youth, and you're finding, are you still having a tough time finding fields? Because I assume that, and I'm not, that's terrible to assume, but there's always Alcoa fields, and most of us have played on those fields for years. And the plus is they have lights. So I'm just wondering if that's an option there that you guys are utilizing.
Yeah, I think because the youth football uses Alcoa Field, but you're right. We have several softball fields. Space wasn't an issue, but soccer was ran traditionally by a private kind of an organization for years. A few years ago, they didn't have leadership, so Joint Rec stepped in and took it over. And we just used the high school fields mostly for convenience because they were already there, measured out, et cetera. But our recreation director pivoted and made it very possible. So we're providing the same thing that we provided last year, just on some different fields. So kids are playing, they seem to be happy, and that's the key. They're getting out. And, we keep talking about this virus, but we know that contracting it in outdoors environments is almost unheard of. So if you do it safely, it can happen. And I know a couple people that are coaching it, and they say there are no issues. They haven't had any problems. They've had to adjust a little bit, but it's working well.
So Tim, you're not hands-on coaching at all anymore, or just, or what capacity are you in?
Yeah, I'm not, just doing some advising. What a couple of years ago when I decided, and it just kind of happened like within about a 1 month period, I just said, you know what, I want to do something different. And part of what I've done with the Boys and Girls Club, PAL, and working with Seaway Valley Prevention Council and the Horizons Clubhouse, it started to take some steps in getting into the opioid problem, the substance use disorder problem. And I got to tell you, all of a sudden, I just kind of fell in love with this field. And I guess love trying to make a difference for people in my community and the region. And I just finished a 1-year project where I was the project director, developing a strategic plan, a workforce analysis, and a sustainability plan to deal with the opioid abuse problem in Jefferson, St. Lawrence, and Lewis County. So it was a 1-year project. And then so now I'm looking at and taking on another project. So it's kind of nice to be in a position where I can pick and choose. Still allows me to do the mayor's duties, which is very important to me, but it's something different. And 32 years of coaching, I don't think you're ever over it, but I just was to a point I wanted to do something different. And what a great opportunity that kind of fell into my lap. And I'm really enjoying it. I think we're saving lives. And that's a serious problem we have here in the North Country. And I know we have it in Messina. We talk about it all the time. We have a substance use disorder issue here. We have drugs, we have problems. And if we don't talk about them and we don't solve them, they won't go away. So we're committed to working on it. And it's right in my wheelhouse. It's what I've done for a number of years. So leaving coaching to put more time at that was just the right transition at the right time for me. And I'm really pleased to be doing it.
So you and I have something else in common now. We both have grandchildren. So where do you see yourself down the road? Where do you see yourself down the road? David is too. Joey's way too young for that still. But anyway,
I better not be anywhere close to it.
Where do you find yourself down the road as far as advising your grandchildren, or are you going to let your son dictate that?
I stopped playing softball. I stopped golfing. I still golf a little bit, and I stopped bowling because I wanted to coach my son a little bit. And I have the same attitude and ego that every coach in the world has. I think I'm the greatest coach, right? So if I have an opportunity to teach my granddaughter, I'm probably going to do it, or at least do some side work with her if she plays sports. Now, a lot of people are thinking she's going to be a cheerleader and all those things, but I'm doing everything I can to buy her equipment, buy her hats. I take at least 10 photos a week with a Red Sox hat on her, which improves her, and she's beautiful, but it just makes her look all that much better. So, I can see it that I'll certainly, if she travels into the sports world, I'm sure I'll travel it with her.
I knew you and I were going to have you were going to bring up the Red Sox. I knew you were. It's been one of those years where I don't know what's going on here. I know the Yankees have been having problems. So you're not gonna take a coaching role with your granddaughter. You'll just sit back and just assist.
Who knows? I might.
I got a huge lag here. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
Of his and my life outside of just normal parenting. We didn't have struggles or arguments, or it was just one of the best 2 years of our lives where we worked on the game. So it was great. But I bet you if the need was there, I'd probably get into it and coach a little bit. Why not?
Well, hey, Jim Boeheim's still going.
Well, I can't. I'm going to be sitting on the beach when I get that old, or someplace. Certainly in a chair somewhere.
Yeah, right.
Hey, so you got to make our fishermen happy here. How much? What can you tell these guys about? Did I see Bassmasters or one of the big bass? We're having a tournament in Messina next year, right?
Yeah, and of course they're having the big bass blowout this year still, but Major League Fishing is coming back, so that's one thing that we've worked really hard on, particularly the town of Messina and Don Meisner and his group, and Tom Miller, the councilman, not the other. That's one thing. We had two Tom Millers in this program. One was the JV assistant, one was the varsity coach. So it was incredibly confusing to many of us, but Tom Miller, the councilman's done a great job, and he served as my battle assistant for, I think, 31 of the 32 years that I coached, so we're close friends too. But fishing's a big what we're trying to do here, which is to reinvent our economy, and you know, some of the greatest fishing in the world is here. Brandon Polniak, who won the first Bassmasters in Waddington, he's quoted as saying the best bass fishing in the country is here at the St. Lawrence River, so fishing's a big thing.
Well, that'll give us what, like they've used the Clayton area. Obviously Waddington is a popular spot. Lake Champlain, I think, and the Plattsburgh area has been a recent spot for bass fishing as well. So North Country is doing quite well when it comes to the bass fishing.
Yeah, and you'll see next year when they complete, or in 2 years when they complete the renovations that are going to go on at the Messina intake, it's going to be an extensive area to host that tournament and fishing. It's going to be a world-class place to hold those types of tournaments. So hopefully they'll bring in more. I think we have to balance it, though. I think you certainly don't want tournaments going on every weekend, because, you know, the average fisherman wants to get out there on that water too and enjoy it. So I think we have to balance it. But it's a great opportunity. We know it brings substantial dollars to the region. Not just those tournaments, but it's when guys like Brandon Polniak tell people on his Facebook and social media, if you want bass fishing, go to the St. Lawrence River. Those people are going to come up here some and take a look at the St. Lawrence River anymore. Joe, is the carp fishing. Carp fishing is still very popular on the St. Lawrence River. We own a camp in Waddington. My wife and I were there most weekends, and just a little bit down the road are some friends from Great Britain who came over here to carp fish, and they fell in love with the St. Lawrence. They fell in love with the region, and instead of staying in a motel, they bought a camp. So now they're here pre-COVID most of the year in the summer, and they're fishing. And so it's a great opportunity economically for us if we seize it. If we're smart about it and we don't commercialize it too much, because that impacts the day-to-day fishermen that are here already. So I'm really proud of what we're doing here in Messina, and it's really the town of Messina that takes the lead on that, and they do a great job.
Anything new coming up in the future besides that, Tim, as far as the town related?
I think where we are right, the current focus right now, for us, it's always about partnerships, and that's one thing I've worked the last 6 years on, is trying to rebuild our partnerships and working with the Power Authority and working with our major employers and working with the state's economic development arm so that we can bring money here. And we've brought several millions of dollars of grant money into our community. A big focus for us has been the downtown. We're trying to restore our downtown, and we've had a lot of progress there. We still have a lot of work to do. It's a struggle right now to get any significant size employers, and one of the things that I've wanted to do is to stop chasing those things, because they never come, right? And one of the biggest challenges in the North Country, if you talk to any major employer in the North Country, their biggest expense after they pay their employees is shipping costs. So it's a real challenge to get them here. You have to balance the affordable and reliable power to try to draw them. But I think it's small businesses now. It's those 10 or 15 small and light manufacturing that we have to focus on, and we're doing that. It's developing the downtown. And I think it's a focus of community development. You know, one of the biggest employers in the region is government jobs, right? So it's municipal jobs, school districts, and it's colleges. So, you know, communities are a different way. They work on it with community development. Improve your parks, improve your playgrounds, make sure your education system is strong, public safety, fishing places. Where can my kids go in the weekend to have exercise and do things? You want a dog park in your community, et cetera. So that when someone gets hired, name it, if they're a teacher at St. Lawrence Central, if they're a professor at Clarkson, if they're a federal law enforcement agency on the border, if they're a police officer somewhere, if they're a correction officer, et cetera, et cetera. I want to live in this community because they have all these nice things and their neighborhoods are nice and their public safety issues have been solved. So for me, I think it's about community development, which will spur economic development, but will make people want to come into your neighborhoods. Our housing market has rebounded here in Messina. In fact, realtors are telling us now that it's booming so well, people are offering more than some people are asking. So that's a good sign for us in this community that the housing market has rebounded and it's moving well. You know, we know we have a lot of work to do on the drug issue and some other stuff, but lots of good things happening here. We're proud of it. We'll keep chasing the economic development as best we can, but let's make this the best community to live in. And if we look at it regionally, we work with all our partners and our neighboring communities, we can all get a piece of this pie.
Well, Tim, if Pete's having some, he's lagging behind us here. He's got some internet issues, but we're on the verge of wrapping it up here, so we want to do it clean. So we're going to have Dave sign us off, but can't thank you enough for coming on tonight. A little bit different perspective, talking to Messina's town mayor, and but a longtime coach and a big-time North Country personality. So we can't thank you enough for taking the time tonight to be on with us and talk a little bit about what's going on.
It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate it, guys. I'll tell you, sports is absolutely, other than maybe my upbringing and some of the values I've been taught, but sports is the reason I think that I have success. I always tell people I have no ability on how to move that wall. My skill is getting people to help me move it. And I learned that from sports and teamwork and those types of things. So sports is one of the keys to our success going forward, no doubt about it. And I appreciate the opportunity to join you guys.
Yeah, thanks so much, Tim. Like Joey said, it's been really interesting to get a different, other than just the coach's perspective, getting the mayor's perspective of how things are going these days. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up for us tonight. Joey Riom, myself, Dave Bartlett, and our host Pete Goslaw, thanking Tim Currier, and as Pete would say, everybody be safe.